When I was a bit younger than I am now, I'm now 15. This story takes place when I was between 12 and 13. I suffered from a bit of paranoia. I didn't actually have the illness, but I was always very scared. This wasn't helped by my insistence to watch scary videos all the time. At the time of this story, I was living in a different house to the one I'm in now. The one I'm in now is on its own in the country. The old house was also in the country. In fact, it's only a 2-minute walk away. However, this house was in an estate. The house had no formal paranormal incidents. My family was the first to live there as it was only a new estate. However, a friend of mine who lived a few houses down from me said that the estate was built on the site of an old battle where a lot of people died. I don't believe this for 2 reasons. I think my friend said that it was a World War II battle, but unbeknownst, Ireland wasn't in World War II. She did often like to tell me and my sister scary stories. I would always ask her to, but she always had something new to tell us. However, something that I do know for fact is that the estate was situated beside a cemetery. With this in mind, let's get on to the main story. I was home, alone in the middle of the day. I was hanging out in my room watching some YouTube on my telly. Nothing scary, probably just Minecraft, Farming Simulator, or any other video game that I'm interested in. For some reason, I was feeling particularly scared that day. It was because of this that I kept looking towards my door. It was open and I could see outside, into the hallway, and towards the stairs that went up perpendicular to my door. I kept getting worried that I might see someone sitting on one of the stairs, looking back at me. So eventually I went over and closed the door, but not fully. The door was still open at what could have been no more than a 10-degree angle. However, this was enough to see any change of light through the crack on the side of the door where the hinges were. Every now and again, I would glance over, and just for a split second, I would see a flash of blackness, as if there was something moving around on the other side of the door. This went on for some time. I just tried ignoring it, as I knew in my heart of hearts that I was just being paranoid. Then I heard footsteps. The doorbell rang and the footsteps stopped. I sprinted so fast down the stairs that if I had hit the door, it would have come off the hinges. I opened the door. Some of my sister's friends were out there. They asked if she would come out to play. I said that she wasn't in, but I would gladly come out. They agreed. I had to go back into the house to put on my shoes. Luckily, they were downstairs, in the hallway. Once my mother and sister got back home, I went into the house. I felt safer now that someone else was there. I also convinced myself that the footsteps were my sister's friend's footsteps. There are 2 things that bother me, however. The footsteps sounded like they were walking on wood. There was no wood by our front door. The footsteps came from my sister's room. I was on the 2nd floor. Her room is in the attic just above mine.
I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. So can anyone tell me why there was a woman sitting on my couch watching TV? I was in my room getting some work done when I had gotten a bit hungry and planned on walking to the kitchen to get some leftover Chinese food. My kitchen sits next to the living room, and as soon as I stepped into the dark hallway, I noticed the television was on. I know I never stopped to watch anything on it, so this was an immediate red flag. Thinking that maybe it was updating or maybe Alexa had switched it on by mistake, I walked over to turn it off, but my heart dropped when I saw a woman with oily black hair sitting on my couch watching. For a moment, I was confused because I knew there was no one here when I walked in, and I knew all the doors and windows were locked. From the time I came home, I hadn't heard anyone break in, so how the hell could a person be sitting there? After the confusion passed, I wanted to walk forward and ask what the hell she was doing in my house, but something screamed that it would be a grave mistake. If anyone has ever experienced sleep paralysis, that's what the feeling is like. I told my body to move, but the primal part of my brain refused to move. I slowly crept back inside my room and just waited in silence. At this point I know you're already screaming at me to call the cops and trust me. Nothing at that moment would have made me feel better than to have one or two hours there to deal with it so that I did not feel bad. But if I'm being honest, I didn't want her to hear me talking. If she had walked to my room, I felt like that. After waiting for half an hour in silence, I mustered up enough courage to at least observe and see what she was up to. Forcing myself up, I cracked the door open just enough to get a clear view of the hallway and look at where she was sitting. If I didn't know any better, I'd have thought she had legitimately just stumbled into the wrong house and was relaxing like any normal person. But something was off. It almost looked as if she was slumped forward on the couch. Part of me wanted to believe she was sleeping, but what I saw next shattered all hope of that. She reached a disgustingly long arm towards the door and unlocked it from her seated position with ease. I haven't measured yet, but eyeballing the distance from my couch to the door, it had to be at least 8 or 9 feet away on the low end. She slowly stood up and made a clumsy effort to walk towards it. Her body was horrifying. She was tall. Uncomfortably so. If I had to guess, I'd say she was maybe over 9 feet with arms that touched the ground and dragged behind her. Her hands each sported roughly 11 fingers that had to each be around a foot in length. From what I remember, she was completely naked with sagging skin that hung loosely off of her extremely thin body. She was also paler than I thought possible. Her skin appeared almost gray, and if I didn't know any better, I'd think her skin belonged to that of someone recently deceased. She didn't move gracefully. She dragged her massive body towards the door and raised her long arm towards the doorknob to pull it open. It almost looked like she had to break her own bones to complete the movement. But as she pulled the door open and moved a spindly leg outside, she stopped. My blood ran cold as she slowly turned her head towards me, and I caught a glimpse of her face. I wanted to scream when I didn't see any eyes. Just a puffy exterior with sagging eye holes and a mouth with long rubbery lips that drooped past her shoulders in a permanent look of anguish. I didn't know if she saw me or if she even had the capability to. All I remember was her turning her head back outside and leaving my home. She shut the door behind her, and I was left in silence with my heart pumping faster than it ever did. I rushed outside with my phone to see if I could catch her on video, and I wish I hadn't. I wish I had just closed the door and gone to sleep or gotten drunk and tried to pass the whole thing off as a fucked up nightmare, but what I saw was, I know it was real.